All right. Good evening. Welcome to the April 8th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting of the Exeter Township School Board. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Fike, can you take roll call, please?
Jason Mell,
Here.
Julia Schaefer,
Here.
Deborah Bloom,
Present.
Dr. Andrea Battler, John Fiddler,
Here.
Dr. Ann Herring,
Present.
Timothy Morgan,
Here.
Travis Odom,
Here.
Allison Wilson,
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fike. In addition to the 8 board members in attendance this evening, we're also joined at the board table by our solicitor, Sharon Montaigne, and members of the school district administration, including Dr. Christy Haller, superintendent, Mrs. Dawn Harris, assistant superintendent, Dr. Josh Hoyt, director of teaching and learning, Mrs. Diane Skornovaki, director of human resources, and Mr. Brian Fike, who serves as our business administrator and board secretary. The meeting minutes are attached. Does anyone have any changes or discussion they would like to make regarding meeting minutes for the March 4th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting or the March 18th, 2025 board voting meeting? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. Next up is a presentation by Right at School.
Thank you, Mr. Mell. We have, as you said, representatives from Right at School. It is an organization that provides daycare programming and after-school programming, summer programming for schools in their school buildings. You may recall a number of years ago that the district had partnered with the BCIU to provide a latchkey and summer program, and after COVID, that was no longer an option for the IU to continue to provide that, and it really left a hole in our community for families who were seeking different types of childcare. So we were able to connect with Denise and thought that this might be a good fit for our school district and invited her to share a possible proposal for all of you to consider for our school community.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Denise from Right at School. This is Peter. I am the Director of School Partnerships, and Peter is all about operations. So he is the operations go-to person. So we're just here tonight to share a little bit with you about the Right at School program. Oh, there we go. So I always like to start with our mission. And Right at School was founded by a gentleman who he has a doctorate degree in education, picked up his daughter from after-school care, and she was fine, but she was just watching a movie and eating Doritos, and he said there has to be more to this space. There has to be more to this beyond the bell after-school enrichment time. So that became Right at School. And our mission, we really focus on all the 3 stakeholders, as you can see, the love of learning for the students, the support the schools and districts, and of course give parents peace of mind. Where am I supposed to be aiming this? There we go. So we are very proud to say that we service 65,000 students across the country. And currently we have 13 partners in Pennsylvania, and I have a slide to show you all our partners, but our closest partners to here are Pequay Valley and Conrad Weiser. There we go. As you can see, each of the different columns, I kind of mentioned it, how our founder, again, the program that was for his daughter, that all of these buckets, all of these columns, you can see kids are safe, so that's wonderful and that's fine. But again, let's elevate that after-school space and really create a partnership with districts, a partnership with all of you, and then also to be able to provide more enrichment for students. So as you can see right on the right-hand side, the biggest things that I want to pull out of there is we have something called clubs, discovery clubs. So we'll be able to figure out what the community kind of is interested in, and we can incorporate that into our program. And then, excuse me, our programs are all year long. So we have before and after school. We can do during spring break and winter break. And then, of course, we have summer programming as well. And then also, too, our program really focuses on, we are curriculum-based. I'm going to share that with you. but we really focus on the whole child and those durable skills, those skills that will last them a lifetime. Okay, and then this is just some of the data that we collected from a well-quality after-school programming, all of these different aspects students have been able to improve on. And the one I kind of always say is the positive identity and just really believing in yourself. And I'll go a little bit again into our activities in our program that kind of show how we build students up. Okay, so I already kind of mentioned what it is that we do. The Right Club, that would be the K-8. It'll be located in each of the elementary schools. It'll be before school and after school. And then we have also a pre-K program and a K program if needed. The Discovery Clubs I kind of mentioned, we incorporate that into our program as well, winter and spring break, and then of course the summer camps. All right, so this is the fun part. I had mentioned our curriculum. Well, it's disguised learning. So all of us, the adults in their room, we would know that the students are learning, but truly it is done in a way that the students don't know that they're learning. It's very hands-on, it's very inquiry-based, and it's also a lot of collaboration, working in groups, but also persistence. There might be a few groups working on something to solve a problem. One of the groups might get it right away, but the others don't. And it's just a matter of sticking with it and, again, getting that idea of persistence. And if you keep up with something, that you will have success. So that's really important as well. Okay, so after school, the way it starts, we always start with a town hall. And that's where the students come in, get a little snack, get to brag about their day. They get to see their friends they may not necessarily be in class with. But also, too, our educators really know the students. So if there's somebody who's maybe a little bit sad or feeling down that day, we're able to then give them that extra attention that they may possibly need. Again, our play-based disguised learning activities. We always have a homework time. We believe family time is family time. So we are having the students complete their homework while they're with us in the afternoon. And then, of course, durable skills. And in our program is always a fitness program. So we go from town hall to get the wiggles out to homework, and then we go into our disguised learning activities. But there's always a fitness component to it as well. So when the weather is nice, yes, you will absolutely see us outside. Okay, so when it comes to our staff, we take this very, very seriously, and we do all the vetting. So whatever the district requires for any kind of licensing and things like that, background checks and things like that, we will do that. Even if it's above and beyond, we will meet whatever requirements the district has. Plus, as far as training, we do training before the educators start with all of your children and the students here in the district, and then it's ongoing throughout the entire year. And that's a lot of what Peter jumps in and does with the staff. Okay, so we're full service. So we actually take all the headaches off the table for the district. So we start with, again, all of the hiring, all the background checks. We do all the licensing for each of the buildings. We supply all the curriculum, the supplies. As far as the registration and working with families, we take care of all that. All the marketing, of course, sent to the district for approval before anything goes out. Again, all of the training, and then we also have flexible funding options for families, and I will show you what those are as well. Okay, so to meet the needs of all families. So any family can do 1 day to 5 days. Before school, after school, both, one, the other, and we also have drop-ins. So we call them punch cards. You can actually get and purchase like 10 what I call sessions, and maybe you already have somebody at home or an older child that is providing care, you know, for your children at home, but you know that there's vacations or sick days and things like that. You could just purchase a punch card and just give us 24 to 48 hours notice, and then you would have before and after school care. And then for inclusion support, so I always share with everyone, I have a 23-year-old who's severely autistic nonverbal, and right now he's an adult program, so he gets on the van and he gets off the van every day, but someone is with him all the time. Meaning he has a one-on-one, he can't function the world without it. So Right at School doesn't supply the one-on-one, but if a family wanted to have a one-on-one join their child that needed that support, we absolutely support that as well. And then we have behavior specialists on our team, so they are constantly helping and modifying programming for all children to be able to be included. So I always love to talk about that because of my sticker pop. And then as far as pricing and discounts, there is a sibling discount of 10%. There, anyone who qualifies for free and reduced lunch gets a 20%. We do take childcare subsidies. And if a family is already qualified for childcare subsidies, there's something called like what I refer to like as a copay. So even if it takes like a month or two to kick in for that funding to come to right at school, it's okay. The family would only be responsible for their copay. They wouldn't be responsible for the entire pricing. And then as far as staff, anybody who works for the district in any capacity and has children that needs before or after school, they get an automatic 50% off. But then if there's also somebody who works for the district, paraprofessional, one-on-one, support staff, things like that, that actually wants to work for Reddit School and has children that need it, they would, their children would go for free. So we offer those discounts as well. Okay, so I was able to look at the pricing from the local child care centers and providers in the area. Because right at school, we always come in the same or less. I'm happy to say we're about 30% less than the average in the local providers, which if you do it over 10 months would be a savings of about $2,000 for families. So we were very excited to be able to do that. Okay, and this is our current partners. So Radnor Ridley, and like I said, places out by Pittsburgh. I was just out there this morning. Moon Area Township. And happy to say that Penn Trafford, another school district out there, they're going to be joining us this year as well. And then, of course, ending up with the Philadelphia School District. But if anybody here would like to contact and reach any of those people, please, of course, they would love to talk to you. Just let me know. And this is my questions page, and kind of talking about, again, people's logos and things that people have said, whether it's a parent or a partner about Right at School. But this is kind of where I open it up for any questions.
Yeah, just from my end, and obviously looking over the agreement that's out there, I just want to confirm, other than the school district providing the facilities for use for this, there is no payments that the school district is providing to you as the provider or anything like that. The cost is really for the parents that want this service.
Correct.
Yeah.
100% correct.
Okay. And then also, just to confirm the times for both the before school and after school, it states here, Monday through Friday, it starts at 7 a.m., and then that would go till the start of school during the academic year, and then obviously after school would be the end of the school day up to 6 p.m.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then is there any collaboration with transportation, or is this really solely up to the parents or the guardians to take the children there and then pick the children up?
So we were excited to learn that Right at School will actually host a program at each of the 3 elementary buildings, so that way kids can be in their home building, whereas previously the BCIU only ran it through Jacksonville and Lorraine. So then there was that busing piece for the students that went to Owatton, they had to go to Jacksonville and then were bused to Owatton. But because this is on-site at the buildings, parents would drop them off in the morning, and there would be no transportation required for the district. We're only offering it K through 4. We're not going to be offering it 5 through 8, even though they have a program for the students in that age group. It's only for our K-4 buildings.
And I see, too, we have 15 students need to be enrolled in each school to run the program. Is that consistent with how many students we had enrolled when we had the BCIU?
So going back to when I was the principal at Lorraine, we definitely had more than 15 students that participated in the program. And like I said, it was a loss when the program no longer was in place at the buildings. Parents were really scrambling. So.
And is there a maximum number of students?
No, because what we do is we always hire up. So we're going to be able to, we open up registration pretty early, probably if everything is approved and it's something that the district does want, that first week of May. And so when we do parent forums, so again, families will learn about our program and then they'll be able to register, and then we just keep hiring up. And the way that it works in the state of Pennsylvania, the ratio is 1 to 12. but we have educators for 1 to 12, plus we have a program manager in each of the buildings. So I always don't know, are we out of ratio or in ratio? Anyway, we have more people there. So again, as the enrollment increases, we keep hiring and training. And then we have to have subs and things like that. So yes, it's never a problem because like I said, we always staff up. Yeah.
Dawn, what is the McKinney-Vento Act? Do you know? Can you share?
Sure.
Thank you.
So the McKinney-Vento Act has to do with homeless youth. I'm not sure what else you want to,
It's in our contract that the district will pay for the tuition of students that are in the McKinney-Vento Act. That's why I'm asking.
oh, is that in there?
If a student is identified by the district as subject to the McKinney-Vento Act, enrolls or seeks enrollment for a parent-paid program within the scope of the services the district will pay to provide the tuition for that student, subject to applicable fees and reduced lunch discounts. So I was just trying to understand it and what
Yeah,
that means for us.
McKinney-Vento is the Homeless Youth Act, so that's students that districts have identified as homeless, and that allows them to access services from the district, but not typically out-of-district services.
So we'll look at the contract again, like, this is not up for approval tonight, this is just for review.
Sure.
And so, and we did have Sharon do a once-over, and we'll look at it again and talk to Denise.
Yeah,
To make sure
that'd be
we're not
great.
missing anything.
Yeah, thanks.
I've got a couple of questions. I guess the first one, Dr. Haller, you said that you described it as a daycare program, yet I don't see the term daycare anywhere in the agreement. Wouldn't that help to put that in there? Because I read the agreement and I came away not knowing what this was going to do. So if it's daycare, that's a phrase that I know.
So I guess some people refer to it as daycares. It's a before and after-school program,
Okay.
and then, which essentially provides childcare. That's probably the better term for it. And then summer programming, which provides childcare. Some people call different places daycares. This is more of a childcare. There's not really a difference.
Okay. And also, I guess to our guests, if I scroll back to the top of the draft agreement, I see the word recitals. Now, I used to give recitals, I wrote about recitals, I checked the dictionary, and I don't see any definition of recitals, although I didn't check the OED, that might help. Didn't see any definition that fit this use. Can you tell us what you mean by recitals?
Mr. Fiddler?
I was going to
I-
say, that's definitely a solicitor question.
Yeah, that's just a term, it's often, you can use that, or you can use whereas clauses, where you say whereas, and it just sort of gives you some context for the actual legal agreement. So you state,
Okay.
you're this person, I'm that person, we want to do something together, those are the recitals, just to give some context.
Okay, I just never saw it. I mean, we've approved lots and lots of whereas agreements, and I just never saw the word recitals. Okay, so neither of you is a musician.
No.
Okay,
I
very
would,
good.
but no.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I had.
I just have one more question. Do you run on the school schedule, or if the school is off, do you provide full-time care?
We do. That was something that we discussed. The way, we never come into districts and dictate what we're going to do. We always take it from the district and what they want us to do. So early dismissal days, in-service days. We also provide, like I said, spring break and winter break. So the answer is yes. That's things that we have talked about, and we 100% can provide that.
And does that include inclement weather where where the buildings might be shut
We
down?
always do it on safety, and we always do it again on what the district wants from us. So for instance, if it's like a late opening, because shovels need to come through, and plow, like, we wouldn't be there, that wouldn't be safe if they need to plow the whole parking lot. But again, we don't dictate, you tell us. Do you want us there? Wonderful, we'll be there. Obviously, if it's like a huge storm and it's unsafe for everybody, we wouldn't. But yeah, we absolutely go on the district's lead on that.
Thank you.
You got it.
I have a question with regards to these summer programs. So 15.5 states that summer break, summer camp programs shall be available to all children without regard for their enrollment or residence in the district. So does that mean that out of district or anyone can attend your summer program?
Completely up to you. I have
Okay.
districts that do, and I have districts that don't. Again, we would follow your lead and what your policy would want to be for that.
Okay. And has the district explored what type of operational expenses this would have on us, especially a summer program, which we don't typically have? 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. operations in a building?
So our buildings are still operating because there's still staff in all of our buildings. We don't close our buildings during the summer, so it would be a matter of water and electricity. And we did previously with the IU host a summer program that ran out of Lorraine all summer long, and it was never a problem. We would just move them to a different space within the building when it was time to clean the cafeteria. Typically, they spent a lot of time outside during the summer, and they did a lot of trips. It's typically what you do during a summer program.
And if we would have a summer program, would that be open to the 5, 6, 7, 8 graders? Or we keep it K to 4?
I think we could look at opening it up to other students. I don't know that I would open up to 7, 8. That's a pretty big span, but possibly, K through 6. We're not trying to, match other programs. We're just trying to give our families options because it's often one of the first questions we get when people move in or enroll because there's waiting lists for other daycares in the area, and they're just trying to find something that fits their budget and fits their work for them.
Thank you.
Another question. Anyone from the administration see a potential for conflict with our TIPS program?
So in the past, TIPS ran, and so did the BCIU program. And so families that choose TIPS will go to TIPS, and families that will go to a summer program will select a summer program. This is more matched for families that need an all-day program in the summer because of work. And those families might not be able to go to TIPS because TIPS is only a couple hours in the morning for a period of time in the summer where this is all summer care because kids are off and parents are working.
Thank you.
And then also too, just to put out there again, it would be communication with the district and what worked for the community. So if there's some families that do like the TIPS program and did the morning, then they can join us in the afternoon if families need an all-day situation. So yeah, we never have community or districts choose between one or the other if you've already got a great program going on. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Have a great night, everybody.
So, Mr. Mel, is this moving to the voting meeting? Because they had said they wanted to start advertising May 1st.
That's my understanding, right? This would be voted on at the April voting meeting?
We would like to pursue it. It's certainly up to the board if you would like to pursue it. Like I said, the reason for our intent bringing it to you is because there's been interest in the community in having different options for some type of before and after school program, and we feel as though the school could possibly fill that void for our families.
So obviously, there's the McKinney-Vento language that we are asking the solicitor to review that Mr. Morgan pointed out. Is there anything else that the board needs to make a preliminary decision on right now before this agreement goes to a voting meeting? Is there any consensus we need to gather around summer programming or anything like that, or are we just going with what this agreement has right now?
I think we need to have Sharon look at it again, just make sure that we haven't missed anything else in the
Okay.
language.
Okay.
Which then we will send back out to the board. The contract is already posted on the district website as part of the agenda, so it's
Yeah.
available for the community to see. And then Denise and I will be talking about that, and any changes we've asked for have been made immediately, and then they send it back to us.
that answer your question, Mr. Moore? Okay.
I just have one last question. Would we be consolidating it for the summer? So it would all be in one building for the summer, but then separated out during the school year?
And I even talked to Denise about when we have full days off for professional development and over the winter break, consolidating it to one building. So that way, there might be a lot of staff that they have that might want to be off. Families might not be sending their kids, and it would be silly to have all the sites operating at the same time. So we did talk about that.
I'm sorry, I had one more question, if I may, to Superintendent. Have you spoken with, or do you plan to speak with any of the other superintendents who are using this program?
So the way that I learned about this was through Dr. Hackman at the IU, and Dr. Giffing, who's the superintendent of Conrad Weiser, was there and spoke to the superintendents about the program and seems very pleased with it. So Conrad Weiser is our Berks County neighbor, and so that's why we thought this might be a good fit for us.
Did he say how long they've been using it?
He hasn't, but I've known Denise almost 2 years now, and we've kind of have missed each other to get this in front of the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you again. Appreciate it. Okay, we will not be amending the agenda tonight. And public comments on agenda items, no one has signed up unless someone would like to come up and speak. Also would like to welcome the teachers from Jacksonwald Elementary, teachers and staff. Thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and move on to committees, starting with education with Mrs. Wilson.
Okay, the first thing on our agenda for Education Committee is 2 staff conferences. Any questions about those? Okay, then.
Just one, I'm sorry. Do we know the lodging cost for this? Is that accurate? Is that for both combined?
It's for both combined.
And that's for one night?
I believe so. I can get the exact breakdown for you.
Yeah, that'd be great, thanks.
Does that include a spa service or something?
I do not believe so.
It's the water park.
Kalahari does have the water park.
It's the water park.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, yeah.
That's how much it costs.
Okay, any other questions on that? Administration, you will review that, though, for the voting meeting? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson.
Sorry. Okay, next thing is our field trips within the 60-mile radius. Just a report of those.
I have
and
a
then
question on that, if you don't mind. It does indicate that the senior high will be hosting the Exeter Games on May 9th. It says students from 3 elementary buildings. Will students partaking from junior high and Rifton also be going? Or is that just going to be a separate agenda item? Or that be added before the voting meeting? Or
All the buildings
All the buildings
go,
are participating.
but they don't always put their field trip requests in at the same time.
okay.
Like each
So-
building
Nope.
puts in
Yeah.
its own request.
I know
to
they
the-
all go. I
yeah.
just noticed they weren't
So
all
they just-
on the agenda.
They just haven't processed theirs
Okay.
yet.
And then if anyone, specifically Mr. Payne, since he's in the house, if he could give a little bit of context on the Owatton Creek travel to J Lanes for community-based instruction. Are they bowling or doing laser tag?
Oh, no, they're bowling. That's Mrs. Weaver's class, yeah.
Okay.
They have a really good time there.
Good, okay. No,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you for that, Mr. Payne. Sorry, just one quick interruption. I didn't publicly note, but Dr. Badler has joined the meeting. I don't know the specific time, but just to... 6:17, so we'll make sure to reflect that in the minutes. Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Wilson, sorry.
Okay, then we will also be approving at the end of this month 2 field trips beyond the 60-mile radius. the Exeter High School cheerleaders going to ESPN World of Sports next year in 2026, and then the senior high school band traveling to state capitol on May 7th. Okay, we have an early graduation request. And then we also have a recommendation for training for UFly, and I believe Dr. Hoyt will be talking a little bit more about that.
So the first agenda item up here, you'll hear the acronym UFly. It stands for the University of Florida Institute. It's a literacy-based program, and I did ask our K-6 curriculum supervisor to come forward and speak about the next two action items on here.
Come down. Okay. All right. So the University of Florida Literacy Institute training is on there because, as you may recall from our last time that I spoke with you, we're having the data presentation. And my team and I were sharing with you that based on our universal screener data from our K-2 classrooms, that we may have a misalignment between what we're doing in our foundation's core programming along with the subtests of our universal screener and the needs of our students. So after that meeting, we had some conversations, and we decided that it would be in the best interests of our students to replace foundations with the University of Florida Literacy. I'm just going to call it UFly. That's a lot, if everybody with UFly, because it is a resource that we are currently using in our K-4 intervention, as well as in our 3-4 classrooms to support our students. And the outcomes that we're noticing and the scope and sequence, the design of the instruction and the resources it provides will better align with the needs of our students. This is not something new. It's something that we are currently using in the district already, and we just want to expand upon it. So this training is going to be to help support our teachers, because we know that in order to improve our student outcomes and create an alignment across all of our buildings, that we need to help support our teachers in doing so. And this training is going to provide professional development for them and background knowledge about the program and why it's so special, as well as some implementation professional development, so that as we go into the new school year, that they can implement it with confidence.
So one of the questions that the board had asked during our data presentation was what are your next steps? What's your action plan? And after we presented our K-2 data, this was one of our action plan items moving forward. So just to give a little bit more context.
I have a question. And it may sound like a softball question, but it's not meant to be. What is the goal of this? Is the goal to improve reading ability? Is the goal to improve reading scores? Is the goal to improve the kids so that when they get to 3 and 4, they're doing better than they are now? Can you talk a little bit more about just why we're doing this?
Yeah, sure. So what we noticed in our universal screener data, as I had said before, is that that data is showing us how well kids are prepared with all the fundamental skills in reading. And what we were noticing in that data is that we had big gaps of children who were not, I'll just say it, like where we needed them to be in order to have successful reading outcomes later on. And the goal of UFly and what we're doing is to improve those outcomes so that we have a better solid foundation for our readers, because as they continue through the grade levels, what happens with our reading is that we expect those foundational skills to be solid so we can become more fluent and then comprehend, because the goal of reading is to comprehend what we're reading so we can learn and we can use that knowledge in life and take it with us wherever we go. So by building this foundation and making it solid, we will improve reading outcomes throughout their whole education.
And is it fair to say, instead of solid, more solid than what we're working with now?
That's very fair to say, yes. This will improve what we're doing now, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why is it possibly 3 and 4, 3rd and 4th grade teachers, not definitively 3rd and 4th? Is it because you're afraid you're going to max out?
No, it's not that. We are still working through the details of how we want the training to look, and we will be we'll continue to collaborate. So some of and we do talk with our teachers, and some of the third grade teachers, like I said, they're already using it. They feel very confident in what they're doing because they're using it in smaller groups, not in a whole group setting, and the same goes for our fourth grade teachers. So we are continuing to talk about who we want to include in that training.
Probably be good if our third and fourth grade teachers are really good at it, to be a support system for our K-2 teachers, especially since we're paying for up to 80 people. It'd be great to fill the room.
Sure, and that it is something that we've continued to talk about, but I've also do have some thoughts about if for some reason it doesn't work out, that they would be included in that training, that we could do the turnaround training with those teachers, because I will be taking part in that training as well.
Thanks.
Sure.
I just wanted to share too, in addition, they had, Dr. Hoyt had shared that they will also be purchasing manuals for all the teachers, that the materials that they would actually need would just be a manual and then a few materials like magnetic letters or whiteboards in addition. So there are not that many materials and there's not much to the programming cost itself.
One of the things that really stands out about UFly, because of the way that the organization is set up, their goal at UFly is reader development and teacher development combined. And so their materials are extremely in line with cost and what districts can afford. And that has been very appealing to us as we've gone through the cost of everything over the last couple of months and years, actually. So switching to UFly, we will not need the consumables that we have been needing in foundations for years and years that they really add up, plus the cost of the Fun Hub, which is the technical side of things for our teachers. That will be gone as well.
Just to confirm, the full $8,400 that we're talking about here, this is all paid for through the Ready to Learn grant? So there's no out-of-district money needed for this?
No, and
Yeah, that's correct. So this structured literacy was, I'll use the term bucket, that was allowable under this grant, and we allocated funds from that grant towards structured literacy for this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mrs. Bush? Mr. Hoyt, did you have anything else that you wanted to go over? Okay. Mrs. Wilson, take it away.
All right. The next item is the Teachers in the Parks contract. So this is a Teachers in Parks contract. The administrative cost is $8,000, and then the cost for our students is $325 each, and we would be sponsoring 48 students for a total of 15,600 students. In addition, if parents can also choose at their own cost to send their students or their children to TIPS. Total, $23,600.
So
Turn
I
the page.
asked Mrs. Bush to stay up here again. We've been working with the elementary schools and helping to identify students and to help continue our partnership with this program. So she's going to talk a bit more about the details with regards to that.
so this year for TIPS, we have determined 2 separate groups of students that we would be identifying to take part in the TIPS program that the district would pay for. That first set would be the students who have English language learning, as well as reading needs, all combined into one. So we would provide full scholarship for those students, and our teams would be identifying students who would benefit from the Teachers in the Parks program. The second group of students that we would be identifying would be our Tier 3 intervention students, so that we can prevent that summer slide from going. So our teachers will again be identifying students in each of their buildings who they would like to participate for that total of 48 students.
Do we know what the total cost to the district budget is on this? And if not, could we find that out for the voting meeting?
Yeah, probably,
So it's.
Well, I
No,
think
some
what,
of that's
I think
grant
what
money and some of that's federal.
No,
Mr.
so-
Morgan's asking is how much is probably coming through
Yeah.
Title III funds versus the other.
Josh can tell you,
Yes, we are allocating $8,000 from Title III.
so roughly 15.
So there's, so
And
there's
how much
18
of that's coming from, how much, so it
So
says
15,000,
Three,
you're looking at
600
15 and change is coming from
district.
the district, but $8,000 is coming from grant funds through Title III.
And the 15,800 is a mixture between the building budgets and the professional services funds?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, and I think previous years is about 28,000 coming out of the general fund.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that, before COVID, because
Yeah.
during COVID, we used ESSER funds to cover some of that for summer learning.
And Title III, just as a reminder for the board, that $8,000 is directed specifically for ESL, ELL students only.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of tips, so I fully support this. It's always nice when we do these presentations, if we could know the breakdown of the dollars. I think that that's just better for us to understand. Just one quick question. Tips used to do scholarship funds if there were community members that wanted to donate for a student or partially donate for a tuition for a student. Do we still have that program? Or is our community, if our community members that are listening want to sponsor a student that wants to have extra support?
Mr. Hathaway is in the audience, so we're going to ask him to come to the podium and answer that.
Matt, we did used to do that, right?
Yeah, to answer your question, we'll never turn a child away from Teachers in the Parks for money. So we do offer grant programs through our registration process. They can acknowledge that they're in need of a grant, and then we find ways to do it. So.
But didn't we used to have like the community, if a community member wanted to?
Oh yeah, they're welcome to give us money. Yes, there's a place to donate on our website to support that way.
Okay,
of course,
great.
yes.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
Has this price changed from last year, or is it the same?
So because last year was the last year we could use ESSER money, we had supplemented for other students who we didn't identify to be able to go, because that was an appropriate use of the ESSER funds because of COVID impact. But since we no longer have that money, that's why you see the increase there, because that is the full price for the program. So we no longer
I
supplement.
just mean the cost per child,
The
has that changed?
the actual cost didn't go up, but for everybody else, it just
Right.
is going to look a little bit higher.
I just have,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, it's just a clerical question. On the second page, at the top, it says initial district payment will be 15,800. Should that be 600 or 800?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. I think that's a typographical error. I think that should be 6. That's actually, I was just looking at that right this second. Yeah.
On the agenda item, it is two different prices mentioned. It's
Yeah, it should be
15,600
6.
and then 15,800 later in the fee structure. So we could get that corrected for the voting meeting.
I have a question about the results or the effects of the TIPS program. Have we ever done a report, or is there a report done at the end of the program every summer to show the public, we did this, here are the kids who went through it, and because of the TIPS program, they can read at a 25% better level, they can do math at a 15% better level, and they can socialize. Do we have anything like that that the public could see?
So we do not have anything like that. TIPS does not provide any of that information for us. However, because we are using Title III funds this year, TIPS is going to provide us with attendance data so that we know of the kids who we were sending on that scholarship money, who was attending and who was not attending. So we could begin to kind of look at that, and then we would set a goal with our Title III as a requirement of Title III, just so we could see how the attendance impacts the students.
And what about teachers? Do the teachers know so that when they start school in August, and there's Johnny here who didn't go through the program, and we know Johnny was having such and such a problem the previous year, but Janie went through the TIPS program, and Janie is just taking off like a bottle rocket. Do we use anecdotal information from our teachers at all who might notice these things?
So we have not done anything like that recently. I remember the one year when I was in the classroom, our reading and intervention team kind of collected that data. We asked for the spreadsheet to see who attended and who did not attend in the grade levels. And then we did inform our teachers or had a conversation about them at the beginning of the school year, but we never took a look at the data that deeply to see if the TIPS program did do what it intended to do with that summer slide.
Is that something you would consider doing?
It is something we could consider doing, of course.
I can't tell you what to do, that's Dr. Haller's job. I just thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could show the parents especially, or show the kids, that because they went to TIPS, they're now doing this level, and, they didn't go to TIPS, well, they got to play some catch-up at the start of the year.
I do think that's something that we would have to talk to TIPS about, because predominantly they are running that summer piece. So we could definitely talk to them and see what kind of information they could provide to us.
That'd be great, thank you.
Sure.
Mrs. Bush, the other, I guess, maybe not so a recommendation, but question is there an assessment given to students at the start of the program and an assessment given at the end? I mean, that would seem to me like the easiest way for TIPS to see if there was any growth within the program. So I don't know if that's ever been a thought, or if that's something that does happen.
Mr. Hathaway and I had that conversation many, many, many years ago, actually, because we were using the DIBELS assessment, that universal screener at that time, and we were looking to see how we could use the DIBELS assessment at the end of the year, that universal screener, and then comparing it to the beginning of the year universal screener with that cohort of students who attended TIPS.
Yeah.
But what we know about those universal screeners is that each subtest is different throughout each of the benchmarking periods throughout the year. So with the exception of the oral reading fluency assessment, it is very difficult because the end of one year subtests are not the same as the beginning of the next year. So what we would be able to do, what we would have to do is pull more of a progress monitoring data. We would need to decide which subtests that we would have to use, and then we'd have to determine how we could compare that and provide that data.
So what she's saying is we'd have to make up our own, and it wouldn't necessarily be valid, because.
Sounds great, let's run with that.
We can go with that, Dr. Haller, thank you, yes.
That's
But
like, just in plain terms.
We
So,
have
because-
tried to look at it in the past, but that was what we
Because
couldn't compare it.
It's development of a true assessment is very, very complicated. And to develop some type of assessment to measure students who attend for what is a couple hours a day over several weeks, you would have to design something very specific to that, and that takes a long time to do that and do it authentically and accurately.
And that attendance piece would also play in, because you have students who go through the program but they don't attend, so then we'd have to use that data as well, and that's sometimes hard to track.
What I think might be a better measure is looking at the end of the year performance of the students when they complete, perhaps second grade, and then in the beginning of the year when we do their benchmarking assessment again, because what we're trying to do is capture this group of students who we know are already struggling, and we're not necessarily attempting to catch them up in that short period of time. We're focused on making sure that they don't lose ground. So that's kind of where we are with that. So we can certainly do an end of the year with what that looks like, and then the beginning of the year where they are.
Just one quick clarification. It isn't a typographical error. What that means is that we have to provide an initial payment to TIPS, and that initial payment has to be $15,800.
That's okay. Yeah, I think there was a typo, though, in the agenda text, where it mentions 15,600 in the.
No, I just think it means like the first payment
Right.
is that much money,
Oh,
and then
okay.
the next payment will be.
I'm actually calling out a typographical error that's in the agenda, though.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay, sorry, but you're talking about Mrs. Schaefer's comment?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that $15,800 represents what we have to pay as a first payment.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
we'll,
you.
we'll modify that and make sure that we have the actual breakdown of what's being paid from the district funds and then what's being paid through title funds. So it's all laid out for you for the voting meeting.
Anything else? Any other discussion? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Bush.
Sure
Mrs.
thing.
Wilson, you may move on.
Okay, the next thing we have on the agenda is a tuition agreement between Exeter and News Story for $447 a day. And then we have a contract with Pediatric Therapeutic Services in Exeter Township School Districts for a bilingual psychologist services effective March 1st through June 30th at $95 an hour.
If I can for just a second, just to explain what that is. When students are recommended for special education evaluation, they need to be tested in their native language. And so sometimes you have to contract with a bilingual evaluator to do that. We usually use the CCIU, but they're booked, and I need one, so we did an addendum with the PTS contract to get that in there. And then preview. The next item is our renewal with our multi-year agreement with PTS. They provide us with a lot of our ancillary special education services, including things like bilingual psychologists, BCBAs, RBTs, speech therapists, et cetera.
Quick question, so the renewal has the bilingual in there, is that because we're going to vote on the addendum first and then it becomes a renewal?
Yeah, we're going to do the addendum
Okay.
first.
That's what I thought.
The
I just wanted to
addendum
make
is
sure.
for the current contract that exists but expires June 30th.
Which then it becomes the current.
And I didn't want to end up in the same situation
No,
next
yeah.
year that I'm in now, where I don't have a backup for a bilingual, so that's why it's in there.
That makes sense. I just saw it at first, and I was like, I think we already have that in the
Yeah,
contract, but
that's
no.
why.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay, and then the last thing is a license agreement. It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve an agreement between Lakeside Global Institute and Exeter Township School District to fund the payment of the Trauma 101 and Trauma 102 trainer certifications and training materials for one district staff member, not exceeding a total cost of $550 during the 25-26 school year.
That's me too. Just a reminder that school districts in the state of Pennsylvania are mandated to do trauma training with their staff annually, and because it's the entire district, we have our own in-house trainer, which is Ashley Reinhardt, and this is the renewal of her certification to continue to do that.
Is this another example of an unfunded mandate? Aha.
Yes,
So
sir.
One of these years, I'm going to understand that
Yeah.
fully, but thank you.
No, you picked it off. You're absolutely correct.
All right, and then we can move everything, A through J, to the voting meeting.
Gotcha, thank you. And we're going to skip item B just for the, within the 60-mile radius, but everything else, A through J, we'll go over. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Morgan, kick us off the 2025-26 budget presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mell. As we continue to prepare and talk about our budget, we did have our first presentation at the last meeting, the voting meeting in March. And as promised, the district has provided us a update. I would presume that these discussions will continue until our voting meeting. So first up is our administration with an update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morgan. Okay, so if we could go, Sheldon, to the second slide. This is our second budget presentation. Just to remind everyone where we are, as of right now, the expenditures are a little over $89 million, and the predicted revenue is a little bit over $87 million, which at this point leaves us with a $1.7 million shortfall if no additional action is taken by the board. The intent of budgets is to make sure that you have a balanced budget, so your expenditures and your revenues need to meet. In the past, except for the last couple of years, the district had taken from its fund balance, and you may recall that after we did the restructuring, that's no longer an option for us because you can't keep drawing that down, and there's not enough funds to be able to continue to do that, so we can't use that as a strategy anymore.
And I just want to say, we could do that, but it's going to affect our credit rating, isn't that right? I mean, there's nothing stopping us from doing that, but unless we want to,
Credit rating, but you'll deplete it in 3 years if you have this type of
Sure.
shortfall, and then you'll never make it
yeah.
up, so you'll.
And I'm not trust me, I'm not suggesting we do that. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure we know.
And
that-
Brian, can you just share for the community how much money is in that fund balance at this particular time?
About 5.3 or 5.4 million, and that's only 22 days of cash for operating.
Mhm.
But, it's a little bit over 6%. The state allows up to 8%, which is less than a month's supply of operating, but, that's just the laws we have to go by.
Mhm.
Brian, what kind of, or how much of a withdrawal from that fund balance would trigger bad news for our credit rating? I mean,
Well,
if we took a dollar out, would that?
We are already on negative or AA negative outlook. They said they'd take that negative outlook if we had at least 3 years of not taking out a fund balance.
Okay.
This will be the third year.
This will be number 3.
If we do take out fund balance, it'll probably drop that credit rating.
Right. And the upshot of that is that it costs more to borrow money then if you have a lower.
Correct.
Credit rating, okay. Is there a tipping point?
And it's not just borrowing for bonds, it's also your leases, when we lease our,
okay.
buses, with the ability to,
Sure.
lease to purchase, those types of things.
But is there a tipping point or a number above or below which there will or won't be a negative effect on the bond rating?
They told us if we had 3 years that we did not touch or take out of the, right, they didn't give me an exact number, but we've done 2 years now that we have not used fund balance. We do a third one.
So if
I
we-
am going back to S&P and Moody's and say, hey, you told us 3 years, take that negative outlook away.
Right, but if we were to take $50 out of the fund balance. would
Oh,
that-
they want a balanced budget.
And
They
we
they
haven't-
don't
we-
agree using fund balance as a balanced budget.
And we haven't been putting money into the fund balance
Right.
because we have been working on making sure that our expenditures are meeting our revenues, and we've been doing that by either eliminating, really mostly through attrition of positions, and then with the increase in taxes, with the 3.25 increase last year. So there hasn't been a whole lot of wiggle room for this administration in building the budget to be able to say like, oh, well, we had extra money and now we're going to be, putting so much money into the fund balance. We haven't been doing that. We haven't been building that fund balance back up. So we haven't been drawing from it and we haven't been adding to it. So if we can move on to the next slide. So at our last meeting, we talked about what is the mandated cost gap looking like for us. And the BEF is the basic education funding. And while there's been substantial increases over the last several years, you can see in the blue is the basic education funding balance and then the mandated cost gap that school districts face. And this source, it came from PSBA. Every year, PSBA puts together a survey and analytics from across the state as to what funding looks like, and this came directly from them. So if you can go to the next slide. Mr. Fiddler had asked, what are some of the biggest mandates that aren't being met by the state? And so we picked the 3 that have the most impact on school districts across the state, including us. And that's part of the mandated expenses that John's holding up. But the biggest ones are the pension, charter schools, cyber charter schools, and special education. We talked a lot about the cyber charter schools the last time, and you can see it's all blue, no yellow, meaning that there's no support really for, it's going up, but the state is not supporting any of the costs of cyber charter schools, which is why there's this call to action across the Commonwealth to support cyber charter school reform.
So just to understand, the blue is the revenue increase that we're getting. The yellow, could you expand on that a little bit?
The
total
blue
cost?
is the cost to us, the yellow is the reimbursement from the
Right.
state.
Okay, so the yellow really should be the revenue increase? Is that what we're saying?
Right.
Okay.
The reimbursement. And charter
Okay.
schools, they do not reimburse.
All right. I think the two are flip-flopped
Yeah.
on the key
So,
then. Okay.
so we're on the hook for the gap between yellow and blue?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So next slide. So we talked a little about this slide the last time. We talked about the asterisk shows all the areas where the things have increased. So you can see that it's pretty much all of them. The only one that stayed stable is our debt service, and that's because of the restructuring that the board did a couple years ago with the debt service to bring it down and be able to do building projects. So the board had asked the last time that we met for a breakdown of this pie chart so you could see exactly what those expenses look like this year. And we also did a historical review for you so you could see the increases over time. So if you could go to the next slide. So we're going to start with the biggest one, which is personnel. When I came into this role for the 22-23 school year, we had 307 teachers, 4 full-time nurses. We had already started to move to decrease to 30 administrators. We had 190 support staff and 75 part-time support staff for a number of 606 employees. So that's how many employees at the time the district had.
Dr. Heller, is that budgeted employees or is that actual?
That's budgeted employees.
So if you had an opening, that opening is still included in that number?
Yeah, but those
Yeah.
openings are only partial year.
Understood,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
still a number.
Correct.
It's still a full-time place. So if you had 10 openings, it was still included in the total number?
Correct.
Thank you.
So what we started to realize when we went through the restructuring process, the team, Brian, myself, Dawn, Diane, was the only way to start to get to a more balanced budget was to start to systematically eliminate positions, and we did it based on enrollment. So that way we were eliminating positions through attrition. So between the 22 and 23 school year, we moved to eliminate 7 positions. Between the 23 and 24 school year, we looked to eliminate 2 more positions. Again, because we've been looking at enrollment and then moving staffing to fill gaps where we needed to do so. So at this particular time, the district employs 580 full and part-time employees. So if you can move to the next slide. So what does that look like? So looking at 22 to 23, that school year, and the prediction for 25 to 26 school year, which is next year, while there's been increases, we've been trying to keep them as flat as we possibly can. So this is what this looks like for all of our salaries for almost 600 employees. So if you can move to the next slide. The biggest area where we've been hit is the benefits piece. Health insurance, last year we had a 12% increase for the district in medical insurance, and we anticipate a 10% increase for the 25-26 school year. So we can move to the next slide. This is an area that went down. So in 22-23, our debt service was a little over $8 million. Through the restructuring, it's been brought down to a little over $6 million. And the district was able, with board support, to complete almost $30 million worth of building projects while reducing their annual payment for the debt service. In this category is our other purchase services, and you can see that there has been an uptick in this category, and a large part of it does have to do with that cyber charter school tuition. And then Sheldon, if you could, I know this is a separate tab, if you could click on that. I'm sorry, you have to actually click on that one. The other, you have to go back to the presentation and click on it. So if you could bring this up, and this will be public. Again, this came from PSBA, and this is why people are up in arms and why the audit was done regarding cyber charter schools. If you can see in that chart, the line that goes all the way up, that's the increase in what they're taking in for tuition. And the bottom line is their enrollment. So their tuition and funding that's coming from school districts has rapidly increased, and their enrollment is not. So that's all profit for them.
So how much did it cost us out of our budget last year in charter schools, and what's the expected for this year?
A little bit under 2 million, a little bit over 2 million this year. And that's probably about double what it was 8 or 9 years ago, and the same number of students.
And they have not the same oversight as school districts.
But I thought that, I'm confused because that first slide we showed like 1.4 million.
Yeah, there's a over $1 million increase from last year, so I think we're trying to understand what.
Oh, because in our budgeting, we have to break it out between regular ed and special ed. And special ed is probably not in that 1.4.
Special ed charter school.
Special ed students in charter school, they get billed at a lot higher rate than the regular ed. And that's what the state's trying to adjust the payments, because our special ed tuition includes what do you want to call it? High-cost students, where theirs only includes low-cost students like speech therapy, things like that, but yet they get the average cost for all of our special ed students, which includes highest cost. So it's 2.5 times what the regular ed student rate is.
So Dr. Heller, can you go back to that slide you were on previously?
So Brian, every category doesn't neatly fit into a certain line item, so sometimes it's broken out. So this is part of where cyber charter schools are, but not, as Brian said, everything, because of the way he has to budget things.
Right, so if we're plus or minus 200,000, little over, little under, and our increase is $1 billion, where's the 800,000 coming from?
Do you understand what he's saying? We're going from 5.3 million to 6.3 million, but the
cost of charter schools is only increasing by 200K.
Yeah, the indication that we've heard is the charter school tuition's increased.
That purchase services also includes things like private placements, transportation cost, wait a minute, let me go back to 500s.
I guess we're just kind of curious, is it just a combination of everything increasing in that category, or is there an outlier in there that's significantly jumped higher from last year?
It's pretty much everything. So I'm looking at, let me just look back here.
Because that's almost, am I doing my math right? Is that like 17, 18% increase? Right? Travis?
275, 500. Well, let's look at this, just the regular education. Charter schools went from 440 to 570,000 for secondary. For primary, it went from 275 to 420,000. So just regular education itself increased about 300,000 or 400,000. Special ed increased a lot more. Because they get the average of what we spend on our students.
I think these are the things that are really important to have in this presentation to understand where that million comes from.
Right.
Because what we're seeing is a 20% increase, and I think what we have to justify to our constituents is this a controlled increase? When people talk about can we trim fat, we want to understand, is there truly fat to trim, or is this an issue of services that are beyond our control? I think Mr. Fiddler said about mandates that we don't have anything to say over.
That cyber charter school is a mandate beyond your control.
No, and I understand that, but we're seeing a 20% increase. I'm just asking to see definitively where that $1 million is coming from. Maybe we can do that for the next meeting.
So if we can go to the next slide.
Before we go on, I think you used the phrase with Cyber Charter, a call to action.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, the other one, I gave you regular ed. Special ed went from elementary tuition 375 to 650. Secondary tuition 600 to 900,000. So that's where the real, what we look at,
Yeah, and I think that's just what's important to know, right?
that's over 500,000 just increase in special ed students, and they're only
Right. So we
20
just,
or 30.
when our community looks at this on the webpage, we want to make sure that they don't think that we're spending an additional $1 million on printing services or telecommunications.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to know the increased costs that, and I'm not downplaying the cyber charter stuff. There's increased costs there, obviously, that are a problem. I know that the Auditor General released that report. It seemed unfortunately missed on a lot of people, that the whole point of that audit was to point out that there is no oversight happening at the cyber charter schools. You have people buying gift cards for others. You have bonuses, lavish bonuses being paid out. That oversight that we have here as a board, where the public can come and speak at that podium and tell us what they don't like that we're spending money on, that oversight doesn't exist at these institutions. So it definitely is a problem that, legislature has to solve, but it's nothing that, other than contacting our representatives, there's nothing at this table that we're going to be able to do about it, unfortunately.
And the other thing to know, we do have our own cyber academy program, and some kids are in there full-time, some kids are in there for a couple months and then back into regular school. But our program, if you add the cost of teachers, because we have multiple teachers that are teaching regular school and the other cyber, is probably about $400,000 total for 100 kids. So that's only about four grand a student compared to 15 that we're paying for regular ed student and 28, another additional 28 for a special ed student to a cyber CAD or a cyber charter school.
So I think some of the misunderstanding from the community is that when we talk about a cyber charter school, we're talking about online school. We're not talking about a brick and mortar school. So when you think about the function of what we provide here in Exeter for a public brick and mortar schools, we have buildings. So students are coming into our buildings, we're maintaining the buildings. There's maintenance of buildings, there's electricity, there's water, there's other services that we have. We provide transportation. Almost every budget or every meeting, we add more budget information for you. I believe it was last month where we added additional routes for the BCIU, and I know people were astounded at the cost per day. I believe it was close to $500 per day for transportation. Cyber charter schools, they don't provide transportation. We have opportunities for our students to have instrumental music, to be part of activities, to be part of sports. Well, to have sports, you need coaches. To have activities, you need advisors. You need to maintain your fields. We just invested over $600,000 for a new turf field. Cyber charter schools, they don't offer any of those services for kids. They don't offer any of those opportunities. But yet, the cost of what we pay, that our community pays to educate our student, is going back to our students for those opportunities, whereas cyber charter schools, they don't have that. They don't have transportation. They don't have food services. They don't have nurses. They don't. Why would they have nurses? We have full-time nurses in all of our buildings that our students need and have access to and should. And
They don't need new elevators either, I would
they do not
imagine,
need
right?
new
Yeah.
elevators. And, but those are all part of maintenance costs that we have to incur, obviously, to have safe facilities for our students, which is why people are looking to, again, across the state, to look to have this capped, because they don't have any of the expenses as a public school does, as a brick and mortar public school does. So,
Okay, I was talking about your call to action.
mhm.
The big difference between a call to action and action.
Mhm.
Can you report on what action has taken place as a result of that call to action?
So we did last year talk about this extensively during our budget process, and I did put up to the board in our community, our legislators for the area, and the chair for the allocations for the education committee. And people should contact their state legislators about this. And I've been to Harrisburg a couple of times last year, again this year. We've met with state legislators through the BCIU. It's always a topic. It's an advocacy effort across right now the Commonwealth, and specifically really at the through Berks County, where we're meeting with people to say, please, we need some reform. When you're a district that relies mostly on local taxpayer funding, and you see over, was it close to $2 million, Brian, going to cyber charter schools, and we're looking at a $1.7 million shortfall and have to raise taxes to meet that, makes you kind of scratch your head for the people in this community that money's going out like that. Dr. Hackman is a great advocate for all of us and helps immensely, and she's worked with her team to develop a letter and a board resolution that I will be bringing forward to the board the next meeting. We just received it today, asking you to consider passing a resolution that we can send to our local state legislators, letting them know that we're asking for reform for our community, for for their taxes. And again, why should we send that much money to a cyber charter school when they're not offering the same things that we're offering? And I would hope that...
In addition to spending on things that are inappropriate, in my opinion, as well.
That's correct. So again, it took a long time for the state to really take a hard look at cyber charter school. No one here is saying that school choice isn't important. I just want to make sure that I clarify that. School choice is important. If parents want to pick something other than coming to Exeter, they want to look at a cyber charter school, that's their choice. But it shouldn't be at the same cost as what it is to go to a brick and mortar school.
And I can add on that the problem that I have with it is if you look at the tuition rates from every single school district, for a regular ed student, it goes from $6,000 up to $28,000. Okay, that cyber charter school is billing every district what their rate is. So that kid that, the high-paying school, $28,000, and the kid that's up in the middle of the state that they're only paying $6,000, they're getting the same education, but why are they getting more? And, for the higher paying schools. And if you look at the brick and mortar charter schools, they're all near high paying schools because they get the local tuition rate. It behooves them, they make more money off it. And to me, it's, if they even come up with a set, stable charter rate for across the state, I think that would help schools a lot.
Well, I've suggested before, I'll suggest again, that we invite our local legislators here and let the public come in and ask them questions directly. Let the public, let our friends and neighbors talk to the legislators and share their stories of hardship, which I have been hearing. I'm just one member of the board. But it seems to me if our lawmakers heard these stories directly, not through a letter, not through a phone call, not through a website, but mano a mano, I think that would make a lot of impact. So I suggested again, let's invite them. This is the perfect season. We're discussing the budget every meeting between now and the time we vote on it. Let's invite them here, please.
I just want to note for the record that Mr. Odom had to depart at 7:16 p.m.
If we can move on. Okay, again, our supplies, they've stayed, we try to keep them relatively flat as far as expenditures. That's been very difficult to do with the water and the sewer and the electric that continues to go up.
So there's actually a drop from last year. Have we put in new toilets or anything, or do we know what's behind that, Brian? One-ply toilet paper?
Think about one-ply
All
toilet
right.
paper.
Forget
We put
it.
in new-
Go ahead, move on.
We put in new dispenser and went with bigger rolls. That's cheaper.
Okay, good.
But also a lot of it's not just toilet papers, cleaning supplies, have gone to a different bid for copy paper, regular supplies. We've actually cut down on classroom supplies because a lot of stuff is now electronic, so they don't need as much, but yeah.
And then we're having some technical difficulties here. I don't know why our chart has shrunk. But this next category, yeah. This next category, we again have tried to keep relatively flat, thanks to Mrs. Harris and her team, always trying to renegotiate contracts. We have our chief negotiator here, Alicia Leonard. We don't really ask her what she says to people. We might have to have her call the water company, I don't know. But so that's an area, again, we've been attempting to control without the negative impact on services. Let's moving forward. Oh, there we go. And then purchase property services. And Brian can talk a little bit about what that entails.
That's everything from plumbers to electricians to repairs, lease contracts, maintenance contracts on our equipment. This year, we got a really tight budget because we've had a lot of sewer repairs and plumbing repairs.
It's from the toilet paper. Cheap toilet paper.
Just because that infrastructure is aging and there's nothing it's not like you rehab that. When it breaks, you fix it. Right now we have a crack line at the junior high, which over the Easter break, that whole back parking lot is going to be dug up. They have to go 8 feet down and replace the pipe for the sewer pipe. And we're pumping out almost once a week right now, just to keep it from backing up. But I can't afford to shut that parking lot down unless the kids aren't here.
Okay, if we could go to the next slide. And then Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about what the property entails?
This goes everything from new computers. We're on a cycle to replace computers to 2 years ago, the board committed to start repairing and replacing certain things. So we're buying new trucks, we're buying new buses. We are, I don't want to call it renovating, but replacing pumps, controls, things like that. And it's about $400,000 a year that we've found that we had, I think we call it deferred maintenance, Mr. Fiddler, that we weren't putting in, that we had to put in, and because we weren't putting in, we had to do major renovations. So we want to keep up on maintaining our buildings and fixing the buildings.
Go to the next slide. So this is where we talked about last week about the budgetary considerations. We talked about the attrition of another teaching position. We talked about the potential elimination of the senior high librarian, and we do have a proposal in front of you to kind of outline our thoughts on that. We talked a little bit about the per capita tax, and then the firefighter tax credit, and the elimination of sports and band uniforms for this year, but you would just have to do it next year. And then increasing tickets and turf field fees. So I can start with the elimination of the senior high librarian. Again, as I started the presentation, the biggest impact on the budget is in fact your personnel costs. And not that we don't value our libraries or that we don't value our librarian, and certainly we definitely value our senior high librarian. And that's why we're looking to do it now, because we have a high school English position open. And so we would just eliminate that position and have her move into the English position. But the reason why we selected this position in the past to look at is that this particular position does not directly instruct students, as you can see from our rationale. And so therefore, the work that she does with students is more collaborative with the classroom teacher in doing research and digital literacy And those are skills that also are taught by English teachers and other content area teachers as part of their curriculum. We felt as though this is a more appropriate option because we already have in some grades very high classes. At Rifton, we did eliminate positions in the past. We're going to have to move someone there next year because we have over 300 students in our fourth grade class. It's a very large class, and we're going to need to add at least one more teacher there. But they're already sitting at 27, 28, 29 in a classroom. That's high for fifth and sixth grade. At our elementary buildings, our primary classes, Lorraine, Jackson, Walter, Watton, there is some variance, but kindergarten is sitting around 20, give or take. Some of our buildings do have lower numbers at 16. Then our first grade classrooms are in the 20s. Our second grade classrooms are again 23, 24. Our third grade classrooms, some of them at Lorraine are at 27. Our fourth grade classes dip down a little bit. It's about 23, 24. And so part of the issue with really taking that down to another teacher in some of those grades is we don't know what the move-in situation is going to look like. So if we eliminate a classroom teacher from there and we bump up a first grade class and we're like, okay, we're sitting at 25, and now all of a sudden we have move-ins, we could very easily wind up with 28 first graders in a class, which is not conducive. So that's why we've looked at it, and we have eliminated positions through attrition when we can, and we will continue to do so. But again, that's why we looked at the senior high librarian position. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I have a question. We have the figure for the teachers. What's the average per Act 93 administrator cost?
I don't know that off the top of my head,
Could
but
we include that so the public knows? I mean, I would assume it'd be higher because particularly their senior administrators are better paid.
so that's actually not necessarily true. So we have, there's a number of our administrators that make less than our teachers.
Okay, well, could we see that number?
For the average, it would not be accurate because, like I said, we have a number of people on the operations side of the house that make less than a classroom teacher, and their per diem rate is substantially less because they work a full year.
Could
They
we
work
still see the
260
number
days.
so the public could get an idea between the teachers and if it's lower, then it's lower?
Sure.
Just take the total number and divide it by that number, right?
Okay, but I think it would be fair to do it by their per diem rate because,
Well, then do the teachers for per diem rate too, just so we have apples and apples.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
John, would that be under the suggestion that we should put one Act 93 position on the budgetary considerations?
Or two, I don't know.
Well,
Or two, I don't know. I mean, why focus on the teachers? That's why I'm interested in seeing the number for the administrators. If it's lower, then we're not going to get the bang for our buck. If it's higher, then we would.
I guess I'm confused because we're not eliminating a teaching position.
No,
We're eliminating a teaching position, we're not eliminating a full-time employee.
Right.
That teaching position is being eliminated because a teacher is retiring.
Through attrition, right.
Right, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious to know so that we can compare apples and apples instead of apples to, kumquats. We don't know what the average.
I guess I'm having a hard time understanding what we're comparing unless we're talking about, like, you want to actually see what it would look like to start to furlough
Act 93 employees.
Act 93 versus furlough
Well,
teachers.
why not? I mean, right now, we're assuming that we're going to ask our friends and neighbors to pick up the whole tab for the 1.7. Maybe there are other options that we haven't even pursued yet. So I'd just like to know what the average is for our Act 93 administrators. I mean, I learned how to do averages, I think, in seventh grade. You take all the salaries, you add them up, and then you divide by the number of administrators. Right.
That's misleading, though, because we have an administrator who works all year long, not taking away, I mean, the teachers do work during the school year, but we have an administrator that is making $65,000 a year.
Okay.
So who do you propose will do her job?
I don't know, Christie, I'm just asking to see the number, so we have an apple to compare with this apple.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say from my end, I think if there's any consideration that is given to furloughing, whether that's teachers, Act 93 staff, support staff, I would suggest that the board present those ideas of what positions you think we could cut, because then we could go to administration and take that back. I don't know if necessarily an average number is going to tell us much. I think we need to know what positions, that we're suggesting could be cut.
Well, that's management. Our job is oversight, or governance, if you prefer.
Sure. Well, I think what I said was that we would take that to administration, and then they would decide whether or not, or give us a recommendation of whether or not those positions
Yeah,
could be cut.
I'm just thinking, and I've been thinking more in my 5th year on this board, the default seems to be we have a deficit and we dump it in the laps of our friends and neighbors who are struggling. Tax increase upon tax increase, water increase. I just saw that the gas company is going for another increase. And we come along and say, we have a deficit, you pay for it. I don't think that's fair.
With all due respect, Mr. Fiddler, and I don't disagree with you with the amount that we're asking of our constituents, but I will also say that we can't sit here as a board when they give a data presentation and say that we expect better from them, and then suggest that we start to furlough teachers and administrators. I think that there has to be a balance. I think that we're trying to get somewhere. So if we're saying that we're willing to stall or create less of an impact on that, what we're trying to do as a district. I mean, you talk all the time about increasing reading scores, increasing math scores, increasing science scores. If we start to take away services that's going to directly impact our students, and by doing so, I don't see how that takes us in the direction we want to go to. I'm certainly willing to look at the data. I feel like we're saying two different things at the same time then.
Well, I'm trying to say one thing.
Can I ask this question, not to interrupt? So of that $138,000, how much is paid to that teacher in benefits? 70?
Brian?
30? 50?
Probably about 40,000.
Okay, so that's an average teacher making,
That's 1.42 of their salary, the
Yeah.
average teacher's salary. Yeah.
And this is not people's actual salaries. This
no, I
is
understand,
the
like,
average.
it's
So
salary
cannot-
plus benefits. So if
Yeah.
you look at that and you say, okay, every employee that works here, we are paying X amount of dollars for benefits on top of their salary, then you can look at the Act 93 and say, okay, well, you can't average it because you can't compare teachers' salaries to Act 93 salaries.
I'd still like to understand why not.
Because if you take a teacher's salary who works 189 days a year, divide that by 189, they're going to make more than if you take someone who makes $100,000 a year and they work 280 days or 290 days.
So then, is that where you came in with the per diem? We-
But it would still not be accurate, because.
So what would make it accurate?
But really, really nothing, because they're not comparable jobs.
Okay.
I think that, I understand what you're trying to get at, Mr. Fiddler, but I think that if we're looking for accuracy, we have to ask the administration, if we were going to cut X amount of Act 93 employees, tell us which ones they would be. That's the question, because then we get the real number.
Well, then let's ask that question.
I'm not going to ask that question because I'm not interested in doing that. You can ask that question.
Well, we will revisit this discussion. I think, let's get through the presentation, but I think that probably will be part of the discussion, that we will go around the board table to find out what the recommendations are of the board members, the majority.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I appreciate where John is headed, and I am in agreement that I do think we need to reevaluate administrative positions that are the necessities, or however you want to phrase it, just as much as we do with teachers, because I do always see teachers being put up there. My question is, and I'm sorry, this is going over my head, with the attrition of the teaching position, that's the bubble teacher.
That's correct.
Sorry. When you say eliminate the librarian, we are putting her in a position for the English teacher position.
That's correct.
So we are eliminating a teaching position.
That's correct.
So we are.
So
Correct.
we would be eliminating 2 teaching positions. And
We are
I,
eliminating 2 teaching positions.
that's correct.
One,
Okay.
one through attrition and then one through the replacement.
But yes, but we're going to
Okay.
be putting her somewhere else because then that way you're not furloughing. But we're eliminating a teacher in our high school library.
Okay, because it just sounded like earlier you said we're not eliminating teachers.
We're not,
But we are.
but that's the high school librarian. So that person will have a job in the district. We just won't have a
it's a
high school. It's the
position.
position.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're
Sorry about
welcome.
that.
Oh, go ahead.
No. And I just want to put it out there that Mrs. Gajewski is amazing. And this is not about eliminating her.
Nope.
And I want to enforce that as much as possible.
No, I
Right.
mean, she's very highly respected and,
Right.
but again, am I going to add more students to a class? Or am I going to look for a position that is not instructing students?
Yeah, and I understand that completely.
And I think, we have eliminated administrative positions.
I was going to
don't-
remind you of that,
We
Dr.
don't
Holly.
have a very large admin team. We eliminated 3 administrative positions, but because of all the mandates that we have with safety and security, we did need to add Eric Seidel's position. Do you want to eliminate the safety and security person? We run our own bus transportation. Those women are reporting at 4:30 in the morning. Sometimes they don't leave till 8 o'clock at night. There's 2 people that do that job because we need to have somebody there on site. It can't be really done by one person. We have 2 people in facilities that are administrators that we have 8 buildings that they have to maintain. We have 1 person that runs food services for 3,800 students. Who's going to, you still have to have somebody do that. We have 2 APs at the high school, 1 at the junior high, 1 at Rifton. That's a safety, that's supervision of students. And we have 1 building principal per building, which leaves you with 6. And you are required to have, you can't not have a building principal. We have 3 administrators that take care of curriculum. Josh, who does oversight, then we have Joe Alcaro, and we have Becky Bush. That's very appropriate for the number of students that we have. And we have 3 special ed supervisors that come under Dawn. And we maintain the majority of our programs. If we want to start to send students out for these programs, it's going to cost you a lot more than an administrator's salary. Because, Dawn, what is a placement with transportation for 1 student on average?
Well over $100,000 when you include transportation.
So, I mean, we can certainly look to eliminate the people that do those jobs. I mean, you can't, I'm sure people would think that you don't need a superintendent, but by law you do. We have someone that takes, the assistant superintendent that also takes care of all of our pupil services and student services, which are required by law. You need Brian. We do. He's the money guy. We have an HR person. Some districts, in all fairness, outsource their HR. But those are districts that don't have very many employees. We have over 600 employees. We have an athletic director. We have an abundance of students that are in athletics. That's not a job that we can give to one of our APs. So, certainly if you want to take a hard look at the administrative team, You can, but I think that you'll be surprised when you look at some other districts and look at the number of administrators they have. And some districts that even brought their social workers into Act 93, and we have not, we don't have that. We don't have that.
Right.
And if you eliminate one of those positions, like I can't drive a bus, so, and you don't want me to. But I mean, we'll certainly lay it out on the table. Everybody's salary in public school is public.
I do, Dr. Heller, just think it is also important to remind everybody, because every year is a new year when we look at budget, and we sometimes forget the years prior and the work that we've already done. Christy and I often forget some of the work that's been done, and we have to remind ourselves as well. And Christy and I have eliminated administrative positions. They are considered in the same way that bargaining unit, teaching, and professional staff positions are considered, and in the same way that support staff positions are considered. We haven't included them in this discussion about, reduction in force and elimination of positions. But we look at all three of those levels. All three of those levels play a role and a purpose in the district, and it's very important that you keep your staffing levels balanced at all of those levels. And at this point and in this juncture, for us, the next position to look at that would have the least amount of impact, as Christy has said, is the high school librarian position.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add we know that the majority of the funding comes from local taxpayers. I mean, that's, when we have gaps between revenue and expenses, the only system of revenue that we have to get more revenue in is taxes, an increase in taxes. We're not doing a bake sale here to try to get more revenue into the district. We have to go and increase taxes in order to make up that gap, or you cut expenses. And you could have some pretty drastic effects when you're talking about what you're deciding to cut. To make up a $1.7 million gap, I mean, I think it's suffice to say that you're going to have to furlough a good portion of staff in order to make up that gap and not raise taxes. Is that correct?
That's correct. And Brian, how many staff will we need to furlough to get to 1.7 million?
I'd say 11.
Okay, 11.
And if we would
Those will
look
be
to
benefit
furlough
changes
11,
in
there
medical.
is guidance for how much of that. We would also have to include administration to be able to do that, but the number of students remain the same.
Right.
And
I-
the services they require remains the same, and those students need to be in classrooms, and we
Yeah.
need to provide services. So
Yeah, so
that's
I-
a lot of
Yeah.
positions.
So we have we have contractual agreements with staff where there's obviously salary increases in there. We have rising costs on utilities and everything else that's hitting us. I don't see how, if taxes are our only revenue source, how do you solve that issue? You have to raise taxes in order to get more revenue in to pay for increased expenses. Or you're chopping staff off, and I would probably say you would have to almost do that every year because of the increased costs that school districts face.
I don't think anybody loves being in this position. We're all home, I'm sure all of you are homeowners. I'm a homeowner too. And this is unfortunately the way that Pennsylvania schools are funded. And unless there's some change at the state level for how schools are funded, this is unfortunately what school districts and school boards have to grapple with.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not because school districts aren't wanting or seeking there to be changes in this funding formula, because I can assure you that is not the case, because in the end, schools exist to support and educate children. And when they're not adequately maintained, when they're not adequately staffed, when you don't have resources for them, then you're failing. And that's the purpose of a public school, The unfortunate thing is that in Pennsylvania, it's not funded correctly.
Yeah. And I will say, school districts, I hear people talk about school districts and should be run like a business. Well, unfortunately, you can't run a school district like a business. We have kids that have to be educated. Those are the stakeholders in this. And you can't just, like a business, decide that we're going to lay off half of the school because of increased expenses, because we still have to educate children. That's the component here that's different than a business. We have an obligation for kids, whereas a business has a lot more leeway to do things like that with their staff.
Well, I can say, first of all, I want to say thank you. I've learned more in the last 15 minutes about this school district and funding than I have in the previous 4.5 years. So I'm very glad I floated those ideas. I will also say, as a CODA, that this is another reason, not just cyber charter, it's another reason for us to invite our lawmakers here and let them listen, not to us, but to the public, whom we will bill, if we pass the resolution, whom we will bill 3.5% more. Let them talk to the people who are going to have to make a decision. Do I pay my school taxes, or do we pay the gas bill this month?
So I would say, does the IU do anything like that, Dr. Haller, where they invite legislators?
I don't care if the IU does it, sir.
Yeah.
Let's us invite them.
I care if the IU does it, because we're not the only district with this problem, Mr.
Good, then let them
Fiddler.
go to all 18 districts.
I hope they do, but they really should be a combination of Berks County schools going there.
Oh, I disagree.
We actually had one in December. We'll have another one at the end of April. We call it an advocacy day, where they bring the local politicians. Christy and I were both on a committee on legislative action committee this morning. Hannah Barrick, the PASBO executive director, presented. The state right now, they're saying they gave us more than they gave us the previous year, which is correct. We're one of the few districts that got over 1%. Most districts in Berks County got less than 1% increase. We got 1.19% increase. The state is actually looking at the rainy day funds could be wiped out in 2 years, so they're trying not to give anything in the future. They're pushing it back towards the local taxpayers. The reason we get 1.19% is we get an additional, what they call tax equity supplement. There's only 3 districts in the county that are getting that, because we're the 3 highest taxing districts. So they're giving a little bit back, saying, hey, we're trying to help your taxpayers, but they aren't giving what the cost of inflation is this year. The other thing I wanted to mention is, yes, we have a little bit over 600 employees, but that doesn't include coaches and other employees. We put out 834 W-2s at the end of the year, because we have a lot of coaches, we have a lot of one season and done type of employees, advisors, things like that too.
So unless anybody has any questions about that slide.
I just wanted, I'm sorry, Dr. Heller, I have an update on the fire techs
Okay.
credit. I did reach out, per the board's ask, to Chief Jordan for some stats, and he provided me the following. And I apologize for not having a slide for this. In 2023, there were 41 people that could have qualified. 20 people took advantage of it for $12,000 to the district, out of the district's pocket. In 2024, 40 people could have qualified, so 1 less. 21 people took it, increase of 1, which was $12,600. In 2025, 48 people will qualify. It's a matter of how many people actually want to submit for it. So last year, if we base it off of last year, it was 12,600. Obviously, we have to keep that 26,000 in there to account for if all 48 would apply for it. To ask about, is the program working? If you all remember, the idea of the program was for retention and recruitment. In between 2023, when the program started, and 2025, they went from 41 qualified to 48 qualified. So people are, we are retaining and recruiting within the fire department. As a reminder, although this does come at a cost to the district, when we talk about the taxpayers, if we would have to go to a fully paid department, the burden on the taxpayers, whether it comes from the district or it comes from the township, it's still a burden on the taxpayers, would be much, much higher.
Yeah, similar to a burden of adding more residential to the area. So I will just say that to add to that, the fire department is ultimately the responsibility of the township. So I do understand that we are trying to help and ultimately help our taxpayers, but there's got to be a little give and take. And unfortunately, I've only seen a lot of give on our side and not much from conversations stemming from other concerns that we have collectively for the taxpayers. So that's my 2 cents.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So is the administration now in support of scenario 3 for the 3.25%?
Well, we have
Am
the
I
next
jumping
slide.
ahead?
Yeah, we have,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Thank you.
So this is the first scenario that we shared. Then we have the second scenario. That was eliminating one position. Remember, you raised taxes 3.25 last year. And then what it looks like with the per capita. And then scenario 3. That gets you the same tax increase as last year with the one position through attrition and then the high school librarian. And then 3.5 if you would choose to eliminate the per capita tax. And then we have the fourth scenario where we included the elimination of the firefighters tax. You can see it's a very limited amount. And again, we have till June to make a decision. We're hoping, you're always hoping that more money will be added to the state budget. I don't think all hope is lost with perhaps some funding coming through at the last minute to offset the cost of cyber charter schools. I think based on what we're hearing, large-scale reform is most likely not going to happen again this year. But I do think, like last year, there might be some money that is attributed to help districts mitigate some of those costs, because it is getting a lot of attention across the state. And I believe that is the last slide.
So Dr. Heller, the lowest percentage we saw there was 3.2%.
That's correct.
And that's with retaining the per capita tax, though, which would still be the $22,000 collection fee. So either way, it was 3.2 to 3.45, let's just say in that range.
Yeah, but
That would be the lowest.
The per capita tax is basically, if you eliminate that, the net after the collection fee is about 0.25% of tax increase.
No, I get it.
You're shifting from one
We're
to the
shifting
other.
it, but
Correct.
the savings that we're getting is the 22,000 annually.
Right, you bring it down to 100,000
So-
instead of 120-some thousand.
Correct. So in that range, based on, depending on where we go with the per capita tax, 3.2%, 3.45%. If the majority of the board does not support that percentage, let's just say roughly 3%, what is administration's next steps? If the board comes to you and says that we don't want to raise taxes by that amount, what actions do you need to take? Or what would you start doing? Would that be the furloughing conversation?
Yes.
That and cutting program,
And
well, you
cutting
got to cut
programs.
programs.
And services
doing
and
furloughs,
programs.
yeah.
And there's no other rocks that could be lifted up to find a magical 1.7 million?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it is important that the administration knows where the board stands. I think simply it needs to be, do you support the 3+% tax increase? If yes, then we know how we're covering the budget gap. If it's no, then that means there needs to be cuts to programs and services and potentially furloughing additional staff.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
That's correct. And we would go back to what we proposed last year and start with looking at instrumental music at the K through 4, well, for our 3-4 students and our 5-6, because that's 2 positions.
Yeah. So those are our options. There's no in-between with this.
No.
You're either, you got to support the tax increase, or you have to give administration the go-ahead to start looking at serious cuts. You're not going to make everyone happy with these decisions. I know, nobody wants to raise taxes. I would say on the flip side, nobody probably wants to see programs and services cut at the school district, but you got to make a decision. You got to stand for something. And that's where we really need the board to give administration some guidance here on what we're looking for. And I think that's ultimately the simplest question that needs to be asked right now is, do you support the 3+% tax increase? Yes or no? And if a majority comes back with no, then we know what the administration needs to start looking at. And again, we have until June, so I'm not saying we couldn't re-poll. But I do think, we're less than 2 months away, and we need to give them time to be able to look into things.
Yeah, I do want to we have until June to adopt a final, but we have to adopt a preliminary in May and
You mean
advertise that for 20 days for
Not
public.
not preliminary, but proposed final? is it?
Proposed final.
Proposed final, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that is the question I'm putting out to the board. I think I would like a straw poll to see where everyone stands. Again, it's a simple question. Do you support the 3+% tax increase in order to avoid cuts to programs and services and additional furloughs? And Mr. Fike, would you do the honors of doing that straw poll?
I'm going to go backwards. Allison Wilson,
I support the administration's recommendations.
Julia Schaefer,
I also support the administration's recommendations.
Travis is not here. Timothy Morgan,
I'm not just going to give yes or no. I'm going to give my why. Sorry, guys. I'm that guy. It's a committee of the whole meeting, so we're allowed to do this. It's a straw poll. I think that we need to remember something, and I do not want to be in this situation, and I always fight to try to lower things, and I still believe that Mr. Fike always has a little fairy dust in the last 30 days, so I'm waiting to see that in May. We just went through this, not line by line, but category by category, and our administration is showing a decrease in supplies spending from the year over year. They're showing properties are flat, and it's salaries, it's benefits, and it's services. And at the end of the day, we made a decision. This is my 4th year, going on my 4th year with the board. We made a decision as a board, and not that we can't ever go back on that decision, that we needed to fix our property where it needed to be fixed, and that we wanted to create an educational program that was going to continue to put us back on track where we needed to be. And that costs money and that costs services. And so there's been too much work in the last several years with Dr. Haller and her team to now say that we should go backwards and start to cut programs, cut services that are going to affect that. Are there things we can cut? Of course there are. I'm not going to say that we can't cut anything. We can make those hard decisions, but we set up a long-term plan, we agreed to the long-term plan, and for us to now say, I don't think that we should do that long-term plan, or we should put that on hold, just forfeits all the progress that we've made over the last several years, which is the taxpayers' dollars that we've been using. And so for that reason, I am supportive. However, I still know there's a little fairy dust.
It's a little fairy dust, but it's not enough to close a $1.7 million gap.
Correct.
So, okay, but you are in support of
I
the,
am,
okay.
and I'm sorry
thank you.
for my diatribe.
No, that's fine, and I was looking to understand the yes/no support. I am not trying to say you guys cannot speak your mind on that, so, I mean, that's fine. If you want to give your reasoning behind that or whatever, that's fine, but I do need to just understand where we're at.
Jason Mill?
I am in support of the administration's recommendation for the tax increase.
Dr. Ann Herring?
I am not in support. I still would like to see more of an evaluation of administration and support staff, just to see more information on that. I'm just not ready to say yes right now. And to have more discussion about where we're at with the libraries, because I think maybe we can dig deeper into that as well.
John Fidler?
No.
Deborah Bloom?
I am in support of the administration's recommendations.
Dr. Andrea Battler?
I can understand where the administration is coming from, and I want to say that I'm in support of what they are doing because I know they are working tirelessly. I completely understand that. Just trying to budget my own house, I get into fights with my husband. So I can completely understand how difficult this is. But at the same time, I also, because I understand how difficult it is for myself and my neighbors and the people who live in this community, I'm not ready to say that I am 100% behind this. And I would like to sit with it for a little while, because that's how I think about it, and that's how I am. So after this, this whole discussion, which I appreciate Mr. Fidler bringing things up and everybody else bringing things up, I would prefer to sit with it. I'm not 100% on board.
5-3 and one
Five.
missing.
5-3, 1 missing. Okay, so we're one person away from a potential motion failing. And in this scenario here, obviously with 8 people. So, no, I'm saying all it would have taken was one more person to say they didn't support it, and it could have been a different decision tonight. So just something to be aware of.
So I think that, in all fairness, there's a second question that has to be asked, right? So you have 3 people that are a no. We have to ask the administration to do work now in order to understand that. So I think that we need to understand as a board what that work is that we need to ask the administration to do for the next meeting and for our next presentation. Otherwise, we're not all going to be able to see that information.
Are you making a suggestion, Mr. Morgan, of what?
No, I'm a yes, so.
No, I know.
Yeah, it would be the people that are not in support of it right now. I think that we need to understand.
Oh, you're saying for the 3 people that voted no?
Yeah, I mean, if you're
Yeah.
not in support of it right now, then we need to understand what we need to do to present. I'm not saying to make them support it, but I'm saying, like, if there's suggestions and information that the board as collectively needs to see, then we need to understand what we need to direct the administration to do for the next presentation.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying, is there something specific that we should start looking at cutting, or?
I
would-
can go back to last year. Before we cut programs, we cut extracurricular, the non-required education. So
Well, those are the first
And
targets,
and I
correct?
wouldn't, and I wouldn't recommend sports or music to be targeted, because that impacts so many of our students at the junior high and high school, and it makes for a well-rounded student, which impacts their acceptance into college. and it would be very hurtful for students. So again, that's why we put up the high school librarian. If you don't want us to cut the high school librarian, then I'm going to suggest to you to eliminate instrumental music, because that doesn't impact all of our third and fourth grade students at all of our buildings, and it doesn't impact all of our students at all the fifth and sixth grade students. So that's what I'm going to suggest to you. And again, the high school librarian is not directly instructing classes. So those are the three positions that I'm going to offer up.
Will instrumental musics cover 1.7 million, though?
No, we would
yeah.
still need 11 positions, so that gives you 4.
11, and
So-
where would those 11 positions be? Would it be throughout the district or elementary, or do we know?
That it would be impossible to cut 11 positions without having like
You'd have to
30,
increase
40 kids in a class.
Classroom size is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to present that to fully understand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you can't cut building principals. I mean, like, you cannot cut a building principal, so, I'm not sure what else if you start to eliminate other operational people, you have 180 support staff that need supervision. So, I don't know anything about sewage and facilities. I can't give guidance on that.
How much would it cost to train you?
I don't.
Do you have 4 years?
The positions that we're bringing forward are not positions that we want to lose, but if you're asking us to cut the gap, this is what I have to offer you. And then I'm going to offer you instrumental music. But if you don't want that, then I'm not sure what else to give you without directly harming students. Because unless you absolutely direct me to put up sports and music, I will not offer that back up, because no one ever does it. And so I feel like that's a scare tactic for the community, and I will not do that. So unless you are directing me to put up sports and music, I'm not going to do that to the community again.
Is there do we have any suggestions or anything you guys want to target?
When I say I'd like to see more of an evaluation of administration and support staff, I'm not saying to completely not have a tax increase. I understand inflation. I get it 100%. I walked in here knowing we're going to have to increase taxes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I want to see 11 people furloughed so that we don't have a tax increase. I'm not saying that. But I would like to see more of an evaluation of that. Numbers. How many secretaries do we have per whatever? I want the community to know that I'm asking these questions. So you can you can put me on the spot and say, who do you want to fire? I don't want to fire anyone. But at the same time, I don't want the community, because I see it all the time. Community members have said to me, and I don't know what it means because I don't know the numbers. Administration's top-heavy. Okay, administration's top-heavy. What does that mean? I would love to see a chart. I know. I would love to see a chart of where everyone's positions are, how many secretaries are here, how much support. I've never seen it. I don't know. I don't come into the buildings here anymore much. So I'm asking the question. I feel as a board member, I have the right to do that without feeling like I should feel guilty about that. So that's where I stand.
Mr. Fiddler, Dr. Butler, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I've already spoken long enough. Would there be a way to split the difference with the $1.7 million difference?
You're saying half of it would be tax increase, half would be other cuts?
Something like that, sure, some formula like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if administration can look and find where those.
Yeah, in the past, the district the way the district balanced the budget was they had no money in a line item to do any type of maintenance. They cut that all out. So that's why the buildings became in the state that they were. So Brian added that back.
We had 5 buses that were replacing old
yeah,
buses that
the-
we don't get 50% reimbursed because they're too old.
I don't know, I mean, and that would only net you what, Brian, $400,000 I think we have in for maintenance?
430,000, yeah.
But then if something goes awry, then where do you get the money to fix it? The other things that we have allocated for are directly related to student like services, students who, transportation. We've already consolidated busing routes, so that way we can make sure that that's being done efficiently. We've suggested, and the board is moving forward with an enrollment study, so we can see where the population is and possibly redistrict and look to see, are we growing, are we flat, or what are we doing with our buildings? Do we need to keep all of our buildings online? Do we need to redistrict? Do we need to look at grade levels to see if there's a cost savings? Those are all strategies, but to find that much money, the bulk of the money is in personnel and benefits. That's where it is.
I have a quick question that somebody had brought to me a while ago, and I didn't know the answer, and I actually suggested they look on the website. How many, let me remind myself exactly how she said it. How many, I think the question was, please forgive me if I get this wrong, and I'll repeat it the next one if I do, but it was, why are there multiple ESL teachers at the elementary schools, and why are there multiple reading specialists at the elementary schools? And why is there not any type of remedial math personnel at these schools? And I think she was comparing it to another school in the district.
Well, we have ESL teachers that we actually went down an ESL teacher a number of years ago and then pooled our resources together, looked at the numbers across the district to see where our ESL population is. Becky worked with the building principals, completely revamped all of the schedules, so that way the highest number of our ESL population is, at this point, I believe, Rifton. So all the ESL teachers start at Rifton, work with our ESL students, and then disperse to go to our other buildings to make sure that our students receive the support they deserve. And then for our 7 through 12, we have one ESL teacher, and that service is done more in a class-type setting. And the reason why we don't have more at the secondary level is because by that time, students don't need as much support. In order to assess the level of support, the students take something called a WIDA exam, and on the WIDA exam, it gives their level of proficiency, and then based on that proficiency, we determine how much instructional time that they need, or if it's then becomes a consult situation because the students are speaking more fluently and then they just need more support. The number of reading specialists was determined by the previous superintendent. She did not necessarily add more teaching positions to the bargaining unit. What she did is when she looked at the staff and when there was retirements, instead of eliminating positions through attrition, which is what we have done, because we knew that this was going to start to happen with all the budget forecasting that's being done across the state since COVID and the ESSER money was going to run out, she added one additional reading specialist per each elementary building. The intent to do that was because of the pandemic, there was huge academic gaps in what students were coming with. And if you recall, the fourth grade class, the current fourth grade class, they were in pre-K in March of that year, so they didn't complete pre-K if they were in a pre-K program. And then as kindergartners, they started the year with that wonky schedule where they did a half day, they were online. So essentially, the kids lost a year that year, to be fair. So the intent of that reading, to add the reading specialist, was to provide that support. There's no number of what is a required reading specialist. I mean, you can certainly have one reading specialist per building, but that's certainly going to impact your MTSS process, which is what determines students who may need special education services, their evaluation. It's all part of a process that we have to determine more academic needs. As far as adding a math intervention person, I would bet we have, 3 of our elementary principals in here. I would bet if you pulled them right now, they would jump up and down if we said we were adding a math person, because math has been a struggle, and we have a lot of elementary teachers in here, and I'm sure they would say, we would love to have a math person come in and support.
No, I'm sorry. I was just wondering why there were, I guess I was wondering why there wasn't one reading and one math. That was probably more of a
Yeah,
general question, but
and just in general.
I understand what
yeah,
you're saying.
Yeah.
I
So,
get that.
yeah, but that's why, and that's how that came to be.
Any other discussion for budget?
Ready to move forward?
I think so.
All right, moving forward, we have a donation from Penn State Wellness for $2,000. It's a grant from the Penn State Pro Wellness. $1,000 will be used for youth mental health first aid training materials, and $1,000 will be used for community events through the Avidum Club. Just curious.
Yes.
I saw this and I read it 3 times. Is it supposed to be mental health and first aid training materials? If not, what is mental health first aid?
Yeah.
Just because I've never heard of it?
Yeah, it's not an error. That is what it's called.
No
It's-
Band-Aids for?
No Band-Aids. It's called Youth Mental Health First Aid and Teen Mental Health First Aid. It's a research-based training for staff to train them on, to train staff and teens on the basics of being able to respond to someone when they tell you that they're struggling or thinking about harming themselves, not from a counseling lens, not to be able to provide counseling, but to be able to provide encouragement, support, and to be helpful in directing them toward the right resources. Now, we do happen to have our chief negotiator, Mrs. Leonard, is also the one who got us this little grant and donation. You have to be accepted as a partner with Penn State Pro Wellness, and she got us accepted as a partner to be able to get this grant. We currently have about 2/3 of our entire staff trained. Am I correct? 5th through 12th, thank you. You can come to the mic if you want, Mrs. Leonard, because this is like a good portion of the meeting where we get to talk about money we're bringing in. So we have about 2/3 of our staff, a little more than that, trained already. The rest of the elementary will be trained. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, all of our 10th grade student cohorts are being trained in teen mental health first aid.
Our 9th grade is.
Ninth grade.
We wanted to put it with, we wanted to do it with everyone that would be getting wellness and PE. And currently, 9th grade is the only one that every single 9th grade student gets health and gets PE. So in 10th grade, you can take health and PE, strength, various things, but it's not every single person. So we're going to train all of our 9th graders in teen mental health first aid.
Thank you.
And that's done in our health classroom with our health teachers.
And in addition to that, because we felt that it was so important to keep our Avidum Club up and running, you remember several years ago now, it feels like forever ago, we first talked about the Avidum Club here at board and bringing it on as sort of that voluntary club with a voluntary advisor and whatnot, and that should be pretty close to getting a paid advisor, I think, Mr. Campbell shaking his head, yes. But so Penn State Pro Wellness was willing to split that grant to allot some of those monies to our community awareness activities that we do with the VEDM Club, including our, we're going to do a plug, our mental health.
Community Fair is on May 7th, which I believe everybody got an invitation, correct? Yeah.
So I believe that, if I remember correctly, miniature cows were on the wish list.
Yeah, miniature cows, miniature goats, rabbits,
Tons of
chickens,
therapy
yeah,
dogs.
Lots of therapy
Water,
dogs. Oh, yeah.
Ritas, all that
Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
good stuff. Yeah, everything Mr. Campbell loves.
Anybody have any questions? I think this is fantastic. Not only a great cause, but similar to Mr. Hathaway, we will always take money.
Yeah, always
to
take money.
support our services, so.
Thank you,
appreciate that.
Mrs. Leonard.
All right, next is a tax assessment appeal settlement. Anything to add to that, Mr. Fike?
This was negotiated on an appeal.
Okay, very good. Anybody have any questions? And I believe that's it. And I don't think that B needs to be moved, but nor does A, so it'll just be C for me.
No, B should be moved. The board has to accept any
We do have to
donations.
vote on the
Ah,
acceptance?
sorry.
Okay,
B and C.
Because there are conditions for the,
okay.
yep.
Perfect. B
Thank you.
and C.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you.
Facilities and Transportation Committee, Dr. Battler.
Thank you, Mr. Mel. It's 2 of the transportation agreements. I'm pretty sure that they're just renewals, if I am correct. The BCIU transportation agreement for regular ed, special needs, and early intervention for a 3-year term, school years 25 to 26, 26 to 27, 27 to 28. And they will provide student transportation for BCTC, non-public schools, and special needs and early intervention. So this is not our regular routes.
Right, and the solicitor has reviewed these contracts.
Okay, fabulous. And B, it's recommended that we approve the BCIU transportation agreement for the extended school year for the summer of 2025, and it is listed whether we need bus, van, or like how many people are being, how many students are being transferred, the van, bus, or bus. The little bus, the big bus. If there's any questions about that, otherwise, both of those can be added to the voting meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Battler. Personnel Committee with Dr. Hearing.
Thank you. At our next meeting, we'll be voting on resignations of administrative staff, extracurricular staff, appointments of certificated substitutes, guest teachers, change of status, additional assignments, leaves of absence, and that's it.
Dr. Herring, I just want to say, sometimes you have an opportunity to work with somebody. Mr. Hunsberger is resigning from the ski club, and I've had the opportunity to spend some time with him over the last couple of years and being a volunteer for that. And just want to say how much we've appreciated him. I think he did 11 years with the district. The ski club, while the district pays for the advisors, is funded on its own through the parents in the organization. And they've really grown. It's actually pretty awesome to see, and they're doing great trips. And I think they were up to 104 kids this year that they put on buses and sent every week over to Blue Mountain. So, and we went to Vermont for the weekend, yeah. So always great to hear about these things. Sad Mr. Hunsberger's leaving. I know he's leaving to take on new things, and we certainly appreciate his time. But anytime you have an advisor that works hard and grows a program, that's a good program for the district. So just wanted to call that out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morgan. Thank you, Dr. Hearing. We're going to go ahead and move on to Policy Committee with Mrs. Bloom.
Sorry, we have the following policies for second reading. Policy number 247, hazing. Policy number 249, bullying and cyberbullying. And policy number 252, dating violence.
Any discussion or questions? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Bloom. Next, we're going to move on to public comment on non-agenda items. No one has signed up. Unless someone would like to come up and speak. All right. And then we're going to forward the following items to the April voting agenda. So we got minutes, the Right at School agreement pending the language review, items 5A and then C through J, 6B and C, 7A and B, 8A through E, and 9A. Okay, are there any board members that would like to be heard at this time? All right. Our next meeting will be our voting meeting on Wednesday, April 23rd at 7 p.m. Please note that that's on a Wednesday and not our typical Tuesday night. There will be an executive session immediately following the adjournment of this meeting to discuss personnel. If there are no objections, we'll adjourn the meeting. Hearing none, meeting is adjourned.